A very welcome all of you in today's daily news analysis. आज का जो न्यूज एनालिसिस है उसमें थोड़ा डिफरेंस है. Unlike in the editorials, I'll be taking one topic every day and we'll discuss it. So what is today's topic? आज का जो topic है, and I need just 10 minutes of yours. Today's topic is about the seventh trade policy review of India at WTO. Okay? So let's understand that ये trade policy review क्या है, WTO क्या है. Let's understand and I'll give you a background. WTO means World Trade Organization. And if you understand the history of World Trade Organization, the World Trade Organization started in 1995. So the importance of WTO, 1995 mein started, and the idea of WTO that is to make the whole country, the whole world, as one big place where the barriers for trade are removed. So what are the barriers for trade? Barriers for trade are tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. So objective of WTO in the beginning was to remove the barriers for trade, both tariff and non-tariff. Now, what has recently happened that WTO as a body has been questioned where its success has been very limited. But one good thing about WTO as a body is that WTO has a process or mechanism under which the trade policy review can be done. So every country अपना एक trade policy बनाती है, and the trade policy has to be as per the requirement of WTO. So this is what the seventh trade policy review हुआ है, and let's understand the outcome of seventh trade policy. So WTO has reviewed India's seventh trade policy review, and that happened in WTO at Geneva, Switzerland. So what is TPR, Trade Policy Review? It is a mechanism under which WTO, can look at the trade and trade policies of the any respective country. So India की जो trade policy, since we are the member of WTO, so India's trade policy should be based on what we have promised to WTO as a member of WTO. So हमारी trade policy should be aligned as per requirements of World Trade Organization. And the last TPR कब हुआ था? It happened in 2015, and this is the seventh one. Now the review of India as a member. इंडिया में की जो रिव्यू हुए उस पे क्या क्या गुड परफॉर्मेंस वाले एरियाज हैं. सो इंडिया हैज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड जीएसटी, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टैक्स इन 16. इंडिया हैज इम्प्लीमेंटेड और हैज ब्रॉट इन वर्ल्ड ट्रेड फैसिलिटेशन अग्रीमेंट. सो जो वर्ल्ड ट्रेड फैसिलिटेशन अग्रीमेंट है वो इंडिया हैज पुट एन एफर्ट. इंडिया हैज आल्सो इंप्रूव्ड इन ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस. देन इंडिया हैज इंप्रूव्ड रैंकिंग इन ट्रेड अक्रॉस बॉर्डर्स. इंडिया हैज मेड ट्रेड फैसिलिटेशन अग्रीमेंट TFA. नाउ TFA क्या होता है? TFA में आप अक्रॉस बॉर्डर्स जो है कस्टम प्रोसीजर्स को फास्टर करते हो, सो दैट द बिजनेस एंड ट्रेड goes up, which means export and import will be easier, and you reduce the bureaucratic hurdles. Bureaucratic hurdles, rules, licenses can be reduced. So TFA is one. GST, ease of doing business, trade across borders, and India has also taken step to liberalize FDI, foreign direct investment, and India's national intellectual property rights policy on 16. So ये इंडिया ने स्टेप्स लिए हैं, which is good performance by WTO. But WTO के भी कुछ objections हैं. What WTO has said? WTO first चीज जो WTO कहती है that India's trade policy is almost unchanged. वो बदली नहीं जाता. It is almost same, and India still uses trade policy. Now objective of WTO क्या है कि हमको trade barriers हटाने हैं. Now WTO says that अभी भी India trade policy instruments को use करता है and to help themselves. So we have trade policy instrument like tariff, export taxes, minimum import prices, import, export restrictions, and licensing, which means still there are barriers which India put in the international trade, which WTO wants that it should be removed. Now, what WTO says that these policies are used to manage domestic demand, to ensure supply requirement, to protect economy from price fluctuation, and to ensure conservation and proper utilization of natural resources. यानी उनका ये कहना है कि इंडिया में जो डोमेस्टिक डिमांड सप्लाई में फ्लक्चुएशंस होते हैं, these tools are used to control that, but it goes against the principles of free market. India makes frequent changes to tariff rates and other trade policy instruments. Now that brings uncertainty, which means आप रेगुलरली अपने ट्रेड पॉलिसी, ट्रेड इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स को या टैरिफ रेट्स को या टैक्स रेट्स को टच करते हो, you try to bring them or you make them changes, and that impacts what? That impacts the future trend, because अभी टैक्स रेट है और सडनली आपने चेंज कर दिया, एक्सपोर्ट आपने रोक दिया, इंपोर्ट आपने रोक दिया, प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट पॉलिसी लेके ला दिया. So when you bring concept like, let's say you bring minimum export price, you are kind of holding the import, a minimum import price. So आप import को hold कर रहे हो, आप export restrictions कर रहे हो. So they go against the spirit of international trade, and that is what WTO has objected, that these policy instruments should be reduced or should not be there. Now ये तो WTO. अब इंडिया क्या रिक्वेस्ट है? Now India has made a request to WTO to find a solution to public stock holding for food security. Public stock holding मतलब जो हमारा MSP प्रोग्राम है, जो हमारा फूड सिक्योरिटी प्रोग्राम है, where we provide cheap subsidized food to our population. So इसमें there's a limit to subsidy. Now, public stock holding is a tool used by government to procure, stockpile and distribute food when needed. Now, ये जो limit है subsidy में, that should be, वो limit है 10% of the volume of production. So ये 10% ही आप subsidy दे सकते हो. And these subsidies are, if you're crossing 10%, you're crossing the limit, and these subsidies are called trade distorting amber box subsidies. And WTO wants that ये जो commitment है वो करना चाहिए. Now remember, इस पर final verdict नहीं आया है. WTO still is trying to negotiate. So India is among the group of developing countries which is demanding that food security program should be exempted from the subsidy reduction commitment of WTO. यानी जो इंडिया की food security program है, we have ration system or National Food Security Act, they should be exempted under this provision. And because under the current provision उसमें limit है the subsidy हम जो दे सकते हैं. But if we agree to this amber box subsidy, then we won't be able to give food security to our other population. So India has repeatedly demanded a permanent solution to public stockholding issues. And India has said that you allow exemption here. So broadly, यहाँ पे 3 तरह की subsidies हैं. We have green box subsidies, amber box subsidies, and blue box subsidies. Amber box subsidies are subsidies which are allowed, but it has to be limited. You can't cross the limit. And that is 10% for developing countries. For developed countries, 5% of the agricultural production. So ये जो amber box subsidies है वो इंडिया के लिए, इंडिया के हिसाब, WTO के हिसाब से trade distorting है, and these subsidies should be removed or they should be limited. So India is already crossing 10% as per the the value of food production, and that is what WTO is saying. Green box subsidies are allowed subsidies; they do not cause trade distortion, and blue box subsidies are also allowed. तो इंडिया को जब सब्सिडी जो देता है वो WTO कैटेगरी में वो ट्रेड को डिस्टॉर्ट करती हैं, एंड हेंस दे शुड बी रिमूव्ड. नाउ बट इंडिया सेज, नाउ सी, इंडिया का केस अलग है. वी आर गिविंग सिक्योरिटी टू आवर फूड सिक्योरिटी टू आवर पुअर. सो हम जब अपने पुअर को फूड सिक्योरिटी देते हैं तो हमें ये इंश्योर करना चाहिए कि हमें ये WTO के अंडर में इसमें एग्जेम्पशन मिलना चाहिए. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी वांट, परमानेंट सॉल्यूशन टू पब्लिक स्टॉक होल्डिंग. Now, trade policy review mechanism क्या है? It is a body which brings transparency. Okay, its objective is to ensure that every member reviews their trade policy and practices, and it also facilitates smooth functioning of the trading system, because it will bring predictability and it will ensure that the trade policies across the world are same. So this takes place where this takes place at trade policy review body mechanism, and under special rules and procedures. What are the functions? You can read them. Function is to allow members to ensure that उनकी पूरी trade policies का review करेंगे. The trade policies are taken every 4 years, and for developed countries every 2 years. Developing का 4 है और developed country का 2 years है. And the idea of the trade policy review mechanism is to ensure that हम goods पे जाएं, services पे जाएं, and eventually intellectual property right पे भी जाएं. So all WTO members are subject to review under the provision of trade policy review mechanism. So that completes. You can go through that. These are 2 questions from Mains Marathon. The payment banks have potential to provide last mile connectivity for better financial inclusion in the country. And the emergence of 4th industrial revolution has initiated e-governance as an integral part of the government. So that is all for today.